Want to get started on your weight loss journey? We all do. Well, we know weight loss can be difficult, but medical advancements have created an absolute game changer. Yes, semaglutide is a once a week shot that can lower your A1C, curb your appetite, craving, slow digestion, and can help you feel full sooner and longer. How do you sign up? Go to DrT23.site. That is DRT23.site. Go ahead and click semaglutide, get signed up for your weight loss goals. Time for this week's Fast Break mini ep. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this podcast. And don't forget to tell someone to tell somebody else to join a Win is a Win family. And if you want to get the necessary notifications, there's a bell somewhere at the top. I am tired of this award. I believe that it is flawed in many areas and it's very one sided. And what are you talking about, Tiffany? Well, I'll tell you the NFL MVP award. I'm tired of it. It is overrated at this point because each and every time the award comes up and we go week by week, 17 weeks in the NFL season, we go week by week. Okay, so Brock Purdy's number one. He has a bad run. Then Jalen Hurts is number one. He has a bad run. Josh Allen, move him out the way, scratch them. Then we have Dak Prescott. It's us changing the bar to meet the standard of what we assume are the accurate metrics for MVP. And there's a issue with the NFL MVP, and that is that the league's best players, in my opinion, don't win the award. Just about every other sports MVP, it's given to the league's best player, and for the most part, there aren't any positional biases. But the NFL's MVP might as well be renamed QB of the year unless some running back puts up some ridiculous stats. Ridiculous stats. So if you have an RB who's putting up ridiculous stats and carried his team to the playoffs, he might get in the conversation. Now, let's look at this for a minute. You have Manning deserved the MVP with the season he had in 2013. Rodgers won it in the past years with the stats that we've seen several times in the last 10 years, but anybody in their right mind would tell you that right now you have a few things happening with this MVP. And I'm going to tell you my opinion. You have non QBs who should be at the top of the list. We all saw the annihilation and the the trample that the Ravens put on the 49ers. Okay. Now Lamar Jackson is number one. And that could very well be. But now we have Chris McCaffrey. Oh, okay. Well, look at his numbers. Look at his stats. Why isn't he in the front running of the conversation? Let's go all the way over to Miami where you have Tyreek Hill, who's a breath away from breaking an NFL all-time record for 2,000 plus receiving yards. But they're not going to get into the conversation. Why? Because they're not QBs. It's one-sided. Well, you enter in Josh Allen. Well, Tiffany, he has almost 50 touchdowns. And has Josh Allen really played to an MVP level when he has the highest rate for interceptions and picks? Okay, Dak Prescott. Let's go over here to the Cowboys because okay, America's team. Well, Dak Prescott was in the conversation a couple of weeks ago because he went on a run and was playing some very good football, which is what he's paid to do. But there are starting cast members who are very valuable to a QB. Now, don't get me wrong, our MVP voting system is definitely flawed, but it's not very fair to compare it to other sports MVP voting, completely rationalizing. But in the NBA, there are much fewer positions that all of which do more or less the same thing. Obviously, it's not as simple as that, but the NFL positions each have a very specific skill set and duty, whereas in basketball, your position more or less depends on your height, you score, and defense. Again, it's more complicated than that, but that's just the surface. Now, this is why the NFL MVP voting is flawed. And in my opinion, because of two reasons. One, QBs get the most of the awards because a QB is pretty much the most valuable player on the team easily. So if a QB has a great year, it's hard to give it to anyone else. Now, why is that, Tiffany? Well, some might argue he touches the ball the most, other than the center. All right. So there's two things that's going to happen: run or pass. Get out of the way. Here comes a sack. They're rushing. Oh, okay. But there's so many different moving parts to the roster. It's not just about getting out of a blitz. It's not just about the pass or run game, yardage, touchdown passing yardage, rushing yardage, total yards, your QBR. It's a lot more than that. I believe the best QB and best non QB should get different awards. Let's separate it. It's time. Because you're continuously overshadowing other players. So what happens now? Well, you have your Mount Rushmores, you have your list, you have your tiers, you have all of these different things for people who are simply going to vote who have actually nothing to do with the game. It's a committee. Furthermore, I'll dig a little deeper. We have to wait all the way until Super Bowl, to find out who's the regular season MVP. Let's just stop right there and think about that for a minute. Why? Heisman is given out right at the end of the season. Why are we waiting? What are they doing in the postseason? Does it count? It shouldn't. Not every team is getting into the playoffs. Not every team is in the hunt. Not every team is going to get a wild card. So wouldn't that completely change the conversation? So we're waiting until Super Bowl to find out who the regular season MVP is. Separated out. Separated out. Also, because voting is done by journalists, which, why? Don't understand that. I know that in 2013, when Manning had his what they call phenomenal God season, he was shorted the unanimous vote by one New England writer. In my opinion, we should have a dedicated group of people voting for MVP. I don't understand the reasoning and the rationale of why it needs to be so difficult. And if it were up to me, hmm, it'll look a little something like this: regular season MVP, non QB, most valuable player QB awarded after the Super Bowl. Super Bowl MVP could be anyone. Playoffs MVP could be anyone. Regular season should be announced at the commence of the regular season. Period. The reason I say that it's the most valuable QB should at least have made the playoffs. I'm going to repeat that. The most valuable QB should at least have made a playoff. Well, unfortunately, the bar changes every week. Someone goes up, someone drops down. The voting is flawed. And here we are at the end of a regular season, 2 more games to go. And yet and still, because of how the voting is so one-sided, it still feels like we have a lot of football left to play. And I don't mean adding in the playoffs. I mean that because we are changing the bar week by week, it is inevitable, that by the time we get to week 17, we're going to have yet another MVP conversation. And who might sit at the top of the list then? Well, I'm pretty sure it'll be a QB. Well, we'll see exactly what happens. But right now, we still got a lot of football left to play in the postseason, 2 more games left in the regular season. So, we shall see what happens. And in my opinion, I still feel, as I have felt for the past couple of years, that the NFL MVP has become a joke.